you'd mentioned playing, like I kind of primarily play in one space, but you also mentioned before or I guess maybe at the beginning of the interview, you're starting to do different kind of stuff, like indie stuff.
Hmm.
So are you intentionally trying to get out of that little space that you've been in, which is primarily like heavy music?
No, but I do want to be able to do other things and have it be a sound that's desired. So I'm working with shakers and tambourines and things that I've thought were terrible things. And learning a lot about keyboards and pianos and things. And it's all really from this one band that I've been recording the last couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just kind of like, well, I guess I could just do some rock music if I can make it sound good, then that's cool.
Mhm.
But I had some experience with it before. Like I got good working with like Fender Twins and things like that, and making things that I don't care about sound awesome,
Mhm.
and trying to understand what about them is awesome to other people,
Mhm.
and just yeah, stepping outside my own personal music box
Yeah.
because I have a very narrow uh, taste.
You were the first person I ever met in the wild who liked Grimlock.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've never,
I
I,
have Grimlock tattoo. It's my email.
when you told me you like Grimlock, I remember doing like a double take, like Grimlock,
Yeah,
like, and not that I hate on Grimlock at all. It's just
yeah.
like it's like such
It's a deep cut.
it's a deep,
Yeah,
deep cut, and the fact that you already brought it up in the interview is like true to form, man. Like,
yeah.
good on you. All right, let's go back to compromise.
Hmm.
Uh, you hit this point where I had said to you before the interview, it seems like you need to do less compromise now because you've like really established yourself. Let's talk about like different kind of compromise because
Yeah, it's
there,
a broad term.
yeah, I want to break it down really, really, really specifically. It can be compromise can be working with someone that you think sucks, like you personally think they suck. Like I actually don't like you, but
Yeah,
I like this project. And I'm talking about both of our worlds right now. Like I like this project, or I know I can help, or um, like I actually care about what happens here, or I like the other people that are associated with it. So
sure.
someone, it could be someone that sucks, or you could be compromising on price. I'm doing this for less, but I'm doing it for like a bigger picture. Or it could be work that you don't particularly like doing, but you like the people that are involved. Or it could be with something that makes you uncomfortable, but you really need the money. Um, when you were starting out, like let's say like in the first, let's say like pre-pandemic,
Okay,
just to frame it up.
that's a big chunk of time.
It's a big chunk of time, but let's talk about like what role did compromise play for you in like building up your business? But and now I'm talking about the pit and management, like everything that you do now. Like what role did compromise play back then? What kind of compromise did you have to get like comfortable with? And also what wouldn't you compromise? Because I was really surprised when you and I were talking earlier and I was like, hey, it probably seems like you need to do a lot less compromise now. And you're like,
Yeah,
oh no, man, I have to do way more.
it's hard for me to speak on it without being specific,
Yeah. And
but
out of respect to everyone, you don't want to be
right. Well,
specific.
and I wouldn't say that it's not like a personal compromise where it's like I think this sucks,
Mhm.
but I'm doing 2 records this year that 22-year-old me would have scoffed at both of them.
Right.
Um, and I think that it's less compromise and more just changing.
Yeah. Growth, like
Yeah,
personal growth.
yeah,
Um, if I think about compromise now, because when you said that, I was kind of like, wow, that seems so weird. But then I was reflecting on it right before we started. I'm like, well, actually, I probably do more compromise now.
yeah,
I do. And I think the way you framed it up, me 5 years ago or me 10 years ago, I was like, I would never do this.
yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And actually, I can think it's kind of cool. Um, I also like things like advertising or these things. I'm like, there's no way I would have done that before.
Yeah. I definitely in the last 2 years cold called, but it wasn't like a cold call like, hey, we should meet up and discuss. It was more like in passing while in a conversation was like, let's just do a record. And he was like, okay. And now we've done 5.
Hell yeah, man.
So um, I guess it's being able to put yourself out there
Mhm.
more, and make yourself accessible. I also didn't do advertising because I, like paid Facebook advertising, but I made a studio page.
Right.
So I asked my friend what is the easiest thing I could do to just get more business. He's like, "Well, do you have a website?" And I said, "Yeah." Nobody really goes to it. He said, "Do you have an Instagram?" And I said, "No." I made an Instagram, and literally within maybe 6 months, the work doubled.
Mhm.
So I think just little things can lead to big things.
And they don't have to be huge because, again, compromise is a huge topic, but they don't have to be like horrible compromises.
Right.
But little things, like especially me, things that I worry. I'm like I don't want to say a chronic worrier, but like I never want to do something that I think is like too off of what I really believe in.
Yeah.
And in this business, I've only ever really done it once or twice. But in my life, I kind of look back and be like, oh fuck, what did I give up to get this, and what did I do there to get that?
Yeah.
So in this business, I'm pretty tight on it, and I'd say I actually compromise way more now, but I compromise on things that I think are relatively small, and they're just more about me being uncomfortable.
Yeah. You're compromising your discomfort in something that is most likely menial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and will give us actually a good gain.
Yeah.
Because it's not just me; it's like now like the whole company.
So it's just putting yourself aside, and that's why I think it's less compromise and just more growth.
Yeah, and being a little like selfless, maybe a bit, and just being like, who cares if I'm uncomfortable? It's the right thing to do.
Right.
All right, man. I'm going to ask you a couple personal questions.
Mm-hmm.
Through this process, getting to where you've gone now, because you got a pretty storied career, and it might sound weird for you to actually hear it called a career. Like, are you comfortable with that term?
Yeah. 33, I feel like I've done enough stuff to not have to feel like a kid all the time.
Yeah. All right. Since I've known you and your brother, but I'll keep it with you, there was always like, you never told me about the pit when you were a kid, but as you've developed, it's almost like the pit was always there. Like you
Mhm.
never told me you were going to do all these things, but it's almost like everything you've done, I've always kind of been like, oh yeah, like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Right.
total sense. It seemed like there was no other path for you.
Yeah, I had backup plans. Um that were like, but it still in the same vein. Like I would go work in television or something because my dad worked in television for years. Um, or find some kind of audio job in general. But no, there was nothing else I ever gave a shit about,
Yeah.
even as far back as middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about like that. I actually gave up, compromised a little bit. I gave up a really awesome job offer. That was like I was 18 and I was giving up like $30 an hour to go do audio for television stuff,
Mhm.
to go on tour with DSI for 3 weeks. And you know what? It ended up being really good. But then the rest of the tours that band did were really bad. But then I started hardcore bands that did better after that. Yeah, that was, my dad was not psyched on that one.
All right, so it always just seemed like a destination for you. What you're doing,
Yeah.
like you're kind of like living your path, basically.
Right.
How are you going to make this sustainable in the future?
I've thought about that a lot. I think for me, a big thing is maintaining relevancy. And there was a point where maybe around 2016, I felt like there was a drop, but I also think it was kind of a creatively bankrupt year for a lot of people. And it ended up with not a lot of bands just recording in general. To the point where I did drive for Uber for 2 weeks just because I was like, well, I need other money to come in now. And didn't have a great time doing that. And then I got booked up really fast. So it was like almost I did it out of self-doubt because it wasn't like the money hadn't dried up yet, but it was like I feel like I need to add to this. And then that was when I asked my friend, how do I grow? And so I definitely think about the future, and it's like, again, it's hard for me to plan in a non-organic way, but I think that if I continue to write music that I really love, and that even if some people like it,
Mm.
it will keep the studio going in a sense, because I'm going to make great sounding records.
Mhm.
And as long as my skill level and records stay up top, then I feel like I'll be able to maintain. But I also need to, as you're sitting in my very, very small studio that I've had for now 10 years or 11 years, I do need to expand
Mhm.
to grow more. I do feel like I've capped with what I have currently,
Mhm.
but it's hard living in the most expensive state on earth to expand from what you have.
So do you have a plan, or are you just considering it?
I have a plan in the sense that I have money saved for the first time in my adult life.
Mhm.
Um, but it's hard to it's hard to be able to, like, okay, I'm gonna pocket this much a month, because every month is different,
Right.
you know. And that's the only thing I can do is save for now.